Joe Flacco, next 5 years, Bengals QB1.
Did the Vikings find a way to finally stop the tush push?
How many times can he run into a brick wall and still go?
Definitely the best game I've seen from Jalen Hurts since the Super Bowl.
Welcome back to the Early Hours podcast, where, unlike the Jacksonville Jaguars, we are all gutted that the London games have come to an end for another year. Look, we'll get onto that game momentarily, but first we need to touch upon Thursday night football. It was the Bengals-Steelers 33-31 there. It was a battle of the veteran QBs, and Jamar Chase reaching a historic milestone, 6,000 plus receiving yards, 50 receiving touchdowns in his first 5 career seasons.
He had 16 receptions on the night, didn't he? Which is just astounding. So the message was clear. We all kind of thought it in the week. They've brought Flacco in because he's got a good arm and he knows the AFC North inside out. And they've obviously identified some weaknesses in the Steelers side that were potentially touted to win the division. And they walked in there. They did what they needed to do. They got the ball to the Triple Crown winner from last year, and it paid dividends because he just balled out, didn't he? 161 yards and a touchdown, I believe it was. T. Higgins on the night as well, really solid night, plays that wide receiver 2 role so well. In most teams, he'd be a 1, so they are very fortunate to have him. And it's sort of, it looks like the Bengals season could potentially be back on after that performance.
They combined really well. Chase Brown as well, over 100 yards, and he's been slow this season. I think it's just the defence is still a massive problem. And Joe Flacco, 342 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. I mean, there's a certain someone that should be on the block, get some picks. Joe Flacco, next 5 years, Bengals QB1. But in all seriousness, no, Jalen Ramsey was in a whole world of trouble on Thursday night. And the Bengals, is it too late for the playoff run? We'll have to wait and see.
I don't know. It was funny actually seeing it go down to the wire, and then both Joes were next to each other on the sideline. Joe Burrow absolutely buzzing that they'd won the game. Joe Flacco literally looked like he couldn't care less, which is quite interesting.
It's probably because he's, absolutely knackered. Bless him.
That's
to
true.
be fair to the geezer, I know A-Rod was. There was a couple of times where A-Rod was literally stood waiting to snap the ball, and you could see him going, "Oh, just catch me."
He looked really good, by the
way,
Rodgers. Like, he actually looked like he turned the clock back. He was coming out of the pocket really, really nicely. And then he got flattened by his 300-pound O-line. He was not happy with that, let me tell you.
There were a few picks though, weren't there?
Yeah, there was, but he's looked really good. I think Metcalf had actually quite a tough night as well. The success at the minute with Aaron Rodgers is his tight ends. The statement is so clear that every time he's targeted his tight ends in the last 4 weeks, I think it's ended in a gain of, on average, between 5 and 10 yards, which is substantial, or a touchdown, best case, which is remarkable. So he is quite literally targeting Pat Freiermuth and Jonnu Smith, and it's working. So fingers crossed for them, they can keep that momentum up.
Yeah, it was not good news for anybody against Jamar Chase. It's not a nice thing to look at on Thursday night. It ruins your entire weekend when you see Jamar Chase going for like 38 points or whatever he got. It's like, well, might as well just give up now and look ahead to week 8. It actually marks the second week in a row as well. I mentioned when I teed up the segment that Chase had set a historic record. It's the second week in a row now that someone has set a historic record against me, with Bijan Robinson last week also doing the same. If you bought Jamar Chase at an all-time low in fantasy, GG, well done. That is what we like to see. Other things we like to see around the league is scores everywhere you look. The Sunday slate last week in week 7, it's a doozy. This could be contender of game of the season. Giants at the Broncos. The Broncos down 19-0 going into the 4th, and then they go and score 33 points to come away with the 33-32 win.
Really was the Bo Nix show. I mean, 2 touchdowns passing, 2 rushing touchdowns, and involving Colin Sutton, Marvin Mims Jr. and Evan Ingram all in the 4th quarter. And you put that up with a pretty nasty Jackson Dart pick, and he looked really upset at the end of the game. Can you imagine being a Giants fan? You're getting so excited at the minute. They've won 2 games this season already, which for them is great. You're watching Dart and Scatterboo as well play really well. You're 19-0 up against the Broncos, who are probably going to the playoffs. You think it's this could be our season to turn things around. 33 points in the 4th quarter.
It's crazy.
Absolute horror show.
Yeah, let's go over to now the Jackson Dart fan club president, Oliver. What did that mean for New York? That's now back-to-back wins for the Broncos against New York sides.
Yeah, it's going to happen. It's his rookie season. He played really well. They can be really, really happy for 3 quarters of football. They genuinely can.
That is a terrible thing to say. Who cares?
Look, it's a rookie season. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. It can be, honestly, they played really well. His pocket presence was really good through 3 quarters. He only threw the one pick, which granted was detrimental to the game. But for the most part, it was a really, really good performance. I think that they can be optimistic. Realistically, you'd rather these mistakes happen now than next season. This is the season where he needs to learn. We saw it happen with, it's close to home for us. Jordan Love in his first year, we went on a 3-game losing streak. It was picks left, right and centre. They were doubting whether he was the guy to get paid. And then he turned it around and he went on a real run. He ended that season one of the best quarterbacks in the league, statistically and in the playoffs. So I just think it's just about building resilience. I think it's a test for them, and ultimately, yes, it's disappointing.
Yeah, well, look, I've got a long-winded stat for you here. The Broncos, their 33-point scoring in the fourth quarter is the most of any team that had been shut out in the first 3 quarters in NFL history. So, look, a long-winded stat, but look, that's not sustainable going forward. Look, the Broncos didn't look that good in London either, and yes, you can say you come away with a dub there, but for the first 3 quarters, they were completely not even at the races.
Shane Bowen needs to be looked at, dropping 8 late on. Just no pressure on Bonix, giving him all the time in the world, and a guy who can throw the ball and receivers who are pretty good as well. You just can't give him that sort of chances late on when it's quite clear to see they've got the momentum. Just shut it down, run the ball, manage the clock. There just was no time management. It was an inexperienced team.
The Giants tweeted out, like, at the end of the third, look, we've already won. Let's seal this off. Like, it's not over until it's over, clearly. That was quite a comeback. We've seen a few of those this season in the NFL, but nothing quite like that.
What a witching hour as well. Scott Hansen, it made for some... Honestly, the popcorn was firmly in my hand at that point because we were in the double box, and we don't know if we were going to come onto this game anyway, but the Colts, the Packers, Cardinals... Wow, that was a heart-in-mouth moment. It really was. It was side by side. Dart was throwing 4th and 19, and I think Jordan Love was getting into the red zone and stuff. So, yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, that's when the wins become losses and the losses become wins. Speaking of another loss, the Jacksonville Jaguars only putting 7 past the Rams, 35 for them. Look, no Puka Nacua, no problem.
What a performance, eh? What a statement from the Rams. That was 35-7 on the day. Unbelievable. It really set the tone. The Jags just looked dreadful in the first 3 quarters of football. They really did. Forced the turnovers, the Rams defense. That was the big takeaway, I think, from this. They forced 3 turnovers and ultimately, there were penalties on the other side of the ball. Jags just couldn't get out of their own out of their own way, really. They were just causing so many problems for themselves and just bad quarterback play, in my opinion.
Yeah, it wasn't a vintage game to watch. It was just so well managed by McVay and the Rams. I mean, the Rams didn't do anything spectacular. Matt Stafford didn't have an amazing day. He didn't throw for loads of yards. Obviously, he got 5 touchdowns, which is unreal. Devontae Adams picking up 3 of them, but just the way that they rolled the ball down the pitch slowly, managed the clock, and that is the difference between a team who knows how to win and then potentially a team we've just spoke about who doesn't. And then getting the red zone, getting the end zone, and then again they're turning that ball over and doing it all again, taking the time, going up the pitch, and just really, really well managed by the LA. And the Jags, I said last week, they've not looked great when they're winning, and it's caught with them this week against a really well organised Rams side who, if we're honest, had a tough travel schedule as well. And yeah, look good.
You said that wasn't a vintage game. I think that's actually a vintage Trevor Lawrence performance. That's a Trevor Lawrence that I know. So yeah, not a good day at the races for the Jags. But no, like you said, have the Rams proved there that travelling as late as they have, is that viable for future international schedules?
For me, it just comes down to the commercial side of it. Is there obligations to do media? Is there obligations to do what worked for them? And I think their sort of way out of this time around was the fact that they played Baltimore last week. They obviously trained in Baltimore.
Yeah, they were already on the East Coast as well, which allowed them a shorter flight.
So very circumstantial. Although saying that, listing across the media this week, the likes of McQuaid talking about could this potentially be something that we see more often and more frequently, especially with the nod and the talks of a potential second game in Dublin next year. If we are going to start to double up the overseas games, and even possibly one in the north of the UK, it's definitely going to be something that teams will consider, and sport from a sports science perspective, they'll be placing a lot more research into, I'm sure.
Yeah, as someone who's been to a few international games this season, they're not actually obligated to do those like press conference and open trainings. It's just something they fulfill their time with while they're here. So it made sense for the Rams, definitely. It'll be interesting to see if other teams adapt to that style. Look, the Vikings 22, Eagles 28. AJ Brown finally getting some love in that Eagles side. But look, alarm bells still ringing. Another week with no Justin Jefferson touchdown.
Just to start on the Eagles, and again, we're backwards and forwards on Jalen Hurts, and give him his dues.
Well, he can't throw the ball,
really
remember
well.
that. He can't throw the ball.
No. I mean, again, as we always say every week, all hate Oliver Gallimore. Thank you very much. But yeah, I mean, Saquon Barkley, a shell of what it was last year, I think it's fair to say. Not necessarily his fault. But yeah, Jalen Hurts played really well. Both Devonta Smith, especially Devonta Smith. Wow, what a week he had. And I wouldn't have wanted to drop him in fantasy this week, like one of our pals on the podcast. But over to the Vikings, yeah. Again, Justin Jefferson, didn't find him very much, and Jordan Addison as well had a much better game. I think the Vikings came back well. They gave the Eagles a good game. It's just probably that little bit of quality that got the Eagles over the line. But just so nice to see Jalen Hurts use his receivers. You know, AJ Brown and Devonta Smith are both top receivers, and just so nice to get them in the game.
What I would say is, and I'll hold my hands up here, I could not have been further from the truth in terms of my predictions on the game we've just covered and this one. I said that the connection between Stafford and Devontae Adams was dwindling, and that the Eagles would struggle to pass against this defense. Now, it's actually the most Hurts has passed all season. And it was as per the commentary during the game, I think it was something like, this is definitely the best game I've seen from Jalen Hurts since the Super Bowl. So yeah, it was a good day at the office for them. And the only thing, the one key talking point from that I wanted to touch on is, did the Vikings find a way to finally stop the tush push?
No, because they still got the first down, didn't they? They tried, but they did still get the first down.
I think that's the closest we've come to a sort of trying to counter it. And it was a really interesting tactic. You could see the linemen that are usually falling offside, really, once they hit the horizontal D lineman, they really do just get shut down straight away, which frees the linebackers and the guys over the top to get to Jalen Hurts faster. So one for us to keep an eye on, I think. Will we see other teams mirroring that technique? I think we will.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. Going back to actually just talking about Saquon Barkley, he's cursed by the Madden curse. He's also being shown up by other running backs this season, Jonathan Taylor, Christian McCaffrey especially. By comparison, he's not having a great season. So but we all know that Jalen Hurts, he prefers the run game, the tush push game, then the throwing game. So maybe he'll get some usage in the second half of the season. Cowboys 42, Commanders 22. Dak Prescott here with 3 touchdowns, and CeeDee Lamb looking like he never left the side.
Absolutely. And that is why you trade high. All right? Because, yes, did I have to give up Booker and George Pickens when they are potentially generational talents this season?
Were you sitting on CeeDee Lamb for weeks without any points? Yes.
Well, look, you've got to weigh up how you see the value. And I came out of that period with one loss, and so 1-1 over that period. So I've had to potentially take a loss to secure now the wide receiver 1 going forward in the league, I believe. I think, given the circumstances, the way that Cowboys offense is operating, he is poised, in the separation that Pickens is allowing CeeDee Lamb to get. I think he's really poised to end the season as WR1, even with the absence of a couple of weeks. I really do. I believe that.
Right, that's mental, because T. Higgins got 0.4 points less than CeeDee Lamb this week, and he's wide receiver 2 in that Bengals side. To say that CeeDee Lamb's going to get wide receiver 1 overall in the league, when you've got the likes of Puka Nacua and Jamar Chase potentially having ball-out seasons, I think that is another crazy take from you.
Another crazy take. Look, we all joking aside about the offense, and great to see CeeDee Lamb back out there from an entertainment perspective for fans. It's awesome, and ultimately it is going to open up George Pickens as well. Fantasy aside, we all want to see that, and we want to see a more dynamic offense in motion. So, but equally on the other side of the ball, yes, Dallas has had its tough times and its criticisms over the course of the season, but relatively successful game. Jaden Daniels obviously going down as well with a potential injury. We're not sure on the timeline for that just yet, and I wouldn't want to specify what the injury is. I think he is set to have some scans on it in the next couple of days, so we'll give you more info on that shortly. But Bland with a pick six. That man is a pick six merchant at the minute. He is just racking them up, and with all the problems that the Dallas defense has had, he really is a bright light. When he's fit at corner, he is an absolute shutdown corner, and it is an absolute no-fly zone. So great work from him, and I think a really solid game for the Cowboys again, especially against a key divisional rival.
Yeah, another solid game for the 49ers as well, coming away with a dub against the Falcons, 20-10. A 200-yard plus game for CMC. Kendrick Bourne and Kittle not even getting a look in. CMC cannot keep getting away with this.
You've never seen anything like it, mate. Honestly, he is unbelievable. But, I mean, I brought George Kittle back in fantasy this week and got 0 receptions for 0 points. What I would say is it's not a coincidence that George Kittle's back in. McCaffrey gets it by far the best rushing record of the season. Same with Brian Robinson as well. Brian Robinson averaging 4 yards per carry, CMC 5.4. I think the average of the season's been 3, and the average was he's getting hit by a defender 0.7 yards after he gets the ball.
But this is what I'm saying. It's not sustainable for that man. Like, the likes of, Pearsall was out. Kendrick Bourne, he caught both of his targets. It's no fault of Kendrick Bourne's fault that he only netted me 3 points this week in fantasy and potentially lost my week, but we won't get onto that. But CMC, he just can't. Like, how many times can he run into a brick wall and still go?
Man, he's so good. Sometimes you watch him down the sideline, you think, just hop out of play, get the 2nd down and 2, and not get hit. He will get hit 10 times out of 10, and 9 times out of the 10, he's getting a 1st down from it as well. The balls on that kid is something different. It was really good to see, though, him versus Bijan Robinson.
Lovely picture at the end of the game as well. With the shirts.
It really is the little things with running backs, and you go back to basics, right? It's always that mentality of trying to fall forward. It's always there. I hate the phrase because it's more of a college-y kind of term than it's like +1 or +2. It's finding that extra yard where you can. But you watch McCaffrey and he's just driving. He's got multiple men trying to pull him down, and he just drives forward. But I was going to ask as well, any concerns around that Kittle performance? I was looking at it before. I believe he was targeted twice, dropped both of the receptions.
Obviously, from a fantasy perspective, yeah, it's not ideal, but it'll come. I think he didn't target tight ends at all. Obviously, Jake Tongas has been our tight end one while Kittle's been out. He wasn't targeted really. I think he had 1 catch. So it was literally the Christian McCaffrey show. That was it. That was literally it.
What's interesting, like last season or the season before, we would jokingly tout the 49ers as the Avengers. But what's happened this season is that McCaffrey seems to be Thanos, and he's got his Infinity Gauntlet here with all of his stones, and like that's all he needs. So instead of having this team of Avengers, he is him. He just goes like this, and
that's why he's sacrificing them all. He's got all his stones. Of course, that's it. It all makes sense.
It's
now.
unbelievable.
Brilliant.
That's what. But joking aside, we touted a couple of episodes ago about Deebo Samuel potentially being comeback player of the year. I think it's got to be McCaffrey. It's got to be. With this performance.
I mean, at the minute, he's also offensive player of the year at the moment.
Unless Joe Burrow comes back genuine and wins it, I think he'd have to win the Super Bowl to overtake him. But that would be miraculous. But yeah, interesting. I wasn't just, sorry, I'm going back on Kittle very quickly, but I didn't know if it was, the question I was maybe trying to allude to was it too early for Kittle, do we think? Do you think there's any risk of that? Or from watching the game, did he look like that?
He was fantastic in the run blocking. He was a massive help in that. He just didn't get the targets. And to be fair, it was the same on the other side of the ball. I think Kyle Pitts got 1 more reception than Bijan. But apart from that, Bijan was obviously the top rusher and the top receiver. Both used very, very similar. It was literally just them two going at each other. It was great. And then whose defense stood up the better.
Speaking of other season accolades, Patrick Mahomes is not only back, he is this season's MVP.
What a performance. We spoke about MVPs and potential candidates last week. He really has got, I mean, it's funny, isn't it? Baker's not played yet, so let's give him his dues, I'm sure, on the next episode. But 286 yards, man. 3 touchdowns. It's just crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Rice as well with 2 touchdowns after his suspension. That kid is just, he's like, yep, we're back to exactly where we were when you left. Mahomes is just an absolute stud. They just, real shame for the Raiders to not see Max Crosby. That's one of the funnest, genuinely one of the funnest divisional one-on-one matchups. I love Crosby on Mahomes. I love it. Book it every season.
It was a Christmas Day affair as
cinema.
well a couple of years ago, and that was a great game.
It's honestly, it's cinema every time, and that was a real shame with Max going out. But Mahomes, man, what a stud. And the Chiefs genuinely could sneak up on. We were saying this actually off air. If the Colts, let's say, hypothetically end up a 1 seed, hypothetically, which genuinely could happen, they might stumble on someone like a 5th seed Chiefs who don't win. Let's say the Chargers or Broncos can steal the division. That means the Chiefs get bumped to 5th or 6th. All of a sudden, you're coming up against someone like the Colts. Now, I back Mahomes all day. You could have the best season of your life. Look, the Cowboys did it a few seasons ago. When you get there, it's a different story, and you come up against the big dogs like the Mahomes and the Josh Allens. It's a different story altogether. I think Mahomes could find his way into a deep playoff run.
The AFC is so interesting at the moment with how badly the Ravens are doing. Like, it's all to play for in that division. So yeah, it'll be exciting come the playoffs for sure. Look, speaking of Baker Mayfield, he plays this evening. The 5-1 Buccaneers are at the 4-2 Lions. This might as well be playoff football. I think this is going to be really explosive.
Just a quick note on the Lions, really, really dynamic offense. To say how much they looked really linear at the start of the year. They were looking for that vertical ball. It was all a bit lost. Top 10 in rushing at the minute. And Amon-Ra specifically, from a passing game perspective, is averaging 98 receiving yards per game. So they really can do it all. But on the other side of that ball, the Bucs defense second in blitz rate at 38%. So they're willing to, really put themselves on the line, force QBs into quick errors, and they've produced, we believe it, 15 sacks in the last 3 games, which is mega. So what an absolute stud of a performance from that D-line. And yeah, we know what happens when Goff gets under pressure. It's just, will we see him manage to get the ball out in time? I'm not sure. We'll see.
Yeah, Goff just doesn't like the pressure. It's interesting to see how Gibbs and Montgomery can do getting off the line. If they can alleviate some of that pressure and get on the outside a little bit, maybe the Bucs have to be a little bit more conservative. But that's when he starts to hit St. Brown. And like I said, the other side of the ball, the Bucs, we don't know who's going to play tonight. Is Egbuka fit? Is Mike Evans there, wide receiver 1 tonight? Again, back from injury. Obviously, no Bucky Irving as well, so there's a lot of pressure on Rashad White. I've got the Lions for this one. I just think the Bucs are just up against it with injuries as good as they are. And, again, we are the Baker Mayfield fan club, but there's just so much for him to do.
Just going back quickly to the other side of the ball, just on that Jared Goff under the blitz, his QBR actually drops off 40 points when he's under the blitz. So, for example, if he's averaging a 79, he's dropping right down to a 39 QBR. It can be really bad at times with Goff. We've seen that in the past. I fully expect them to scheme it up so that he's looking for quick screens. He's looking for, it could be RB screens. We know Gibbs can be a receiver as much as he can in an out rusher. And yeah, just a really quick tempo, I think, from which we've seen them in the past can be really good at under Ben Johnson. So yeah, but pressure's on Bucs, I think, in this one.
Definitely.
Baker Mayfield, who knows?
I've got the Bucs for this one, but I think that's more of a bias because I need them to help the Packers out in the NFC North for another loss for the Lions. And then rounding out the week, the Monday Night Football late game, it's the Texans at the Seahawks. Who have you got for this one?
I mean, yeah, 3 a.m. in the UK, isn't it? So if you're staying up for this one, then fair play to you. I'm going to go Texans. I think they're starting to hit a little bit of run of form. Nico Collins looks good. Obviously, CJ Stroud has picked it up a little bit. On the other side of the ball, it's all on Sam Darnold and Smith-Njigba. I mean, Smith-Njigba has been arguably the best wide receiver in the league this year, as much as that pains everyone to say and think. It's quite an open game, that. It's quite open, and if it wasn't 3 a.m. in the morning, I'd be tempted, but unfortunately, I'll be giving that one a miss.
Does CJ Stroud manage to evade the pocket? We've seen he can be quite... He's almost regressed slightly over the last season or so, and he finds where he used to be really quite mobile and exciting to watch and dynamic, very similar to Jaden Daniels in a lot of ways, but arguably has a bit of a better arm in my opinion. He has been prone to taking a lot of sacks this year, and that Seahawks defense, 10 sacks over the last 2 games, so they're right up there with that Bucs side that we just mentioned. So it's crazy. It really is. They're just flying at the minute, and actually as well, another thing, the Seahawks, they rank 5th in the pressure rate, and Houston allow pressure on 34% of dropbacks. So again, it's that discussion of, is CJ Stroud going to get the time, or is he going to get it out, or is he going to get sacked? That's what it all comes down to for me. I think offensively they can win. They can win, the Texans, that is. But I'm gonna lean towards the Seahawks, I think.
It's the Seahawks all day for me as well. Regardless of the Texans' bye, I think the Texans would actually benefit from game time rather than a week off at this point of the season. So I think, Smith-Njigba Sam Darnold, I think it's going to be a terrible day at the office for the Texans. So that's all we've got time for on this episode of the Early Hours podcast. Let us know who surprised you the most on Sunday in the comments below, or reach out to us on Early Hours NFL on socials, and we'll catch you again on Thursday.